just as we drew it up, just who we wanted to take the last shot. Tennessee 79, Alabama 76. Jordan Moore in the house. Glad to have you in here, man. How fired up are you right now over this one?
I woke my kids up from taking a nap. I was screaming so loud when he hit that shot.
Oh my gosh.
I still can't believe that just happened. I'm at loss for words. Unbelievable. Just an unbelievable ending.
I cannot either. And it's like, I don't know. It just, I right now, as much excitement as we had, I'm trying to figure out how we won this game. Because I'll be honest, I think Alabama outplayed us most of the night. But know what matters was we got a couple stops, and then Meshack, dude, that's unbelievable. That's so awesome for him to get that shot. But you guys coming in, trickling in right now, make sure you hit that like, that share, that subscribe on the channel. Now at this point, Tennessee is in line if they take care of business for that number one seed. I don't think it's locked up. I think a lot of people are assuming it's locked up right now. I don't think it is, because if you turn around and lose to an Ole Miss, or, I still wonder if you lose that Friday night game in the SEC tournament, how it goes. But this is huge. Do you agree with them saying this was the biggest home game in Tennessee history?
Yes, because of the potential implications what you're just talking about. And I think I may have texted you this yesterday. I know some people had put it up on Twitter, but that's just the second top 6 matchup ever for a home game for Tennessee. So, I think it's potentially the biggest game in the history at home for Tennessee basketball. When you just look at the rankings, what's on the line, and it's not just the number one seed too, right? Like what you're talking about, the SEC tournament. I mean, you're fourth now with this win, I think, or potentially.
Yeah, they were in fourth. They had the tiebreaker over who was A&M and Missouri.
Yeah, so not playing on that Thursday. Now, if you can finish these last 2 games off, you're playing on that Friday, like you just discussed. Potential for a number one seed overall. I think with the implications of what this could lead to, it definitely we can look back in 2 weeks, I think, and definitely say this was the biggest home game ever in Tennessee basketball history.
Yeah, for sure. If they finish off the way they should. I mean, Ole Miss struggled. I'm a little hoarse right now. I'm like you. I may or may not have rattled some ceiling tiles down here in the bottom right now. Hopefully the cats weren't on my wife's lap at that point, so I hadn't gotten any messages. I hadn't gotten anything at this point so that she got clawed up. But I think that's going to be the big one. I mean, Ole Miss struggled to beat Oklahoma at home today. That gave me, because that's going to be a tough game along the way. But let me hit some comments here. Tim Bradley, what's up, man? Of all players, Jemai Meshack hits the game winner. Good for him, man, especially in his senior year. He's done a lot for the program and stuff, but I don't know. It just – and that it's not like it was an easy shot. I mean, that was one of those – he was, I think, about halfway between 3-point and half court there. I mean, that was – and he made it look effortless.
Watching it live, I don't know if you saw it or not, but you could read Rick's lips, and what he was wanting to happen is to get the ball inbound and then back to Zakai to get it across half court to call a timeout and then draw up a play. But when Zakai inbounded the ball, they covered Zakai, so they couldn't get it back to him. So then Meshack took it, and by that point, by the time he realized he couldn't get to Zakai and turned, he had to take a shot. They weren't going to be able to get a timeout really, and get anything drawn up. But everybody's going to talk about the shot, but what about right before that, the 5-second violation to get the ball back?
Yeah.
So that's a massive, massive play in the game. I was heated there for the officials not calling the foul when Sears stepped on Zakai's ankle. I I was mad. I was fuming over that. And so to me, the way that played out is justice and that foul not being called there. But an unbelievable game. I think I'll have to go look. I can't remember, but I told myself, and you may have seen the stat that I put up. I think I might even text it to you. About a week or so ago, I looked that we'd won, and I may have this number off, but it's like 43 or 44 straight games when we reached 69 points before our opponent. And in this game, we reached 69 before Bama did.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, here we go, we're going to win. And then when they went up with a minute to go, I'm like, well, there goes that streak. And then we win the game. So that streak's still alive.
I had actually texted some buddies of mine when Bama got up by, 3 and got fouled. I was like, we're done. And then we weren't. So it was, the big thing about the one you're talking about was Zakai got stepped on, went to the ground. It was so much that the foul wasn't called, but also it ended up in a jump ball, which at the end we had a jump ball that went to Alabama that should have went to Tennessee. That almost had big repercussions on it. Thankfully it didn't, but yeah, you're right. I mean, that 5-second at the end was humongous. That was the difference in this game, and just so much going on. The officials blew the whistles too much, and I think both teams had a lot of discrepancies today. I'm looking at this from Tennessee's standpoint. I'm not saying Alabama didn't get a raw deal on any fouls today, because when the whistle's blown that much, they did. But 2 calls I was upset with, the one you were talking about, and at 4 minutes, Jemai Meshack jumped in, caused the loose ball, and he got fouled, yet they called the foul on him. And it went to the line, and
is that the one that Grant Nelson got hurt on? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, and then he went and hit 2 free throws on it. Grant Nelson caused the contact. He reached out and grabbed Meshack on that. That should have been a foul on Grant Nelson. Instead, he went to the line and hit 2. Now, with that said, I get both teams have discrepancies with the officiating in this game, because the officiating was pretty horrific again on both sides today. But the bottom line, when it boiled down to it, like you said, justice was served at the end with that 5-second call, and then Meshack stepping up, hitting that shot. Cannot say enough about it. And, on a game, on a day where, man, I really – did you think Tennessee got outplayed today, or did you think it was pretty similar, pretty even?
I definitely thought that they got outplayed. I mean, I agree with that assessment. I was texting somebody with about 10 to 12 minutes to go in the game, and they was like, man, let me see if I can find exactly what he said, because it was really good. But he just said, he said, I think it's just a clash of 2 styles. It's always hard to completely feel good. And he's like, the clash of styles has been all Alabama. They're shredding our defense. And I know the crowd or Twitter writers are talking about fouls, but most of them we are fouling. They're getting us consistent rotations basically every possession, which sucks because they aren't able to really guard us either. And I think that's true. I think that defensive part is true. They consistently got us into a rotation, and we were consistently chasing the ball, which that's not what our defense is built to do. But yeah, I agree with you. I think they outplayed us. I agree with that. They had what? I mean, they had 43 rebounds. We had 32. So, I mean, they won the rebounding battle. They hit 1 more 3 than we did. They were 9 for 24. We were 8 for 21.
Man, that that felt a whole lot worse than it was actually.
Yeah. They had more fast break points, more points in the paint. So, yeah, more rebounds, more fast break points, more points in the paint. They had more steals. The turnovers were even. So, yeah, I think they definitely outplayed us. But sometimes it feels good to get outplayed and steal one, because, I mean, it's happened to us plenty of times in the history of Tennessee basketball that I can remember.
I agree. I looked through the stats here, and there was really nothing on Tennessee's side where I can sit here and say this is why they won the basketball game. I mean, 43% to 42 in field goals. Both teams shot 38%. I really felt like the three was a whole lot worse than it was. 9 out of 24 for Bama, 8 out of 21 for Tennessee. Free throws, both teams, I think, maybe this is the difference, but because Bama was 17 out of 26, 65%. But Tennessee was 19 out of 26, 73%. Both teams 12 turnovers. Points off of them, 20-19 Tennessee. Like you said just a minute ago, Bama 43-32 in rebounds. That's a huge difference on that one. Second chance points, Bama 14, Tennessee 7. Bench points, surprisingly, which a lot of this was Jordan Gainey, but 27-25 Tennessee. Points in the paint, like you mentioned, 32-28 Bama. Fast break, 11-6 Bama. Both teams had 5 blocks, 8-6 steals Bama, 13-12 Tennessee. Nothing Tennessee on the stat column says Tennessee should have won that game today. But sometimes maybe it's better to be lucky than good along the way.
And a couple of things too. Of course I can't remember them verbatim, but I saw them around Twitter a few times this week. I can't remember the stat, but Tennessee has a really good record. I think maybe one loss when Chaz scores 18 or more this season. He scored 18 again today.
Yeah.
I've been putting the stat out about how good we are when Zakai has more assists than he has 3-point attempts. He had more assists than 3-point attempts today. And then the 3 guards that we've been talking about, Gainey, Chaz, and Zakai, they all 3 led you in scoring. Chaz and Gainey both had 18. Zakai had 15. So when you look at it that way, Tennessee did the things that they've done this season to be successful to win the games in those aspects. Chaz scoring, Zakai dishing the ball instead of shooting a lot of threes, Gainey being active in the game and scoring. So on that aspect, on that side, Tennessee did enough. But in this box score, when you just look at that team for team, I think you got outplayed and you stole a game, but it feels good to steal a game and be on the happy side instead of the ticked off side at this one.
Yeah, because I'd got to go to the bathroom there with, I think we'd fouled, and I was already starting. I could feel my ears a little hot at that point because like we're going to lose this game. And fortunately, we didn't. Papa J, member of the channel, says, woohoo. Papa J and I were texting a little bit. I'm going to hit a lot of them here. Members here, people that have subscribed. Moonshine says, Bama sucks. Always great to beat them. I think they were playing a little Dixieland Delight in the post game, which was pretty cool. Here, Hamilton says GBO. Darius Jones says game of the year, go Vols. Yes, this one is better than the Illinois game, even though that was a heck of a game. What's up, Sandra? She just says Meshack with all exclamations. Kyle Beach loves him some Shaq. Rebecca says, wow, 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 what a game. Yeah, I cannot stress that one enough. I would agree with this one. Barnes was – he was probably, like you said, I think you called that one. It's not what he wanted, but he's not complaining about it at this point. Richard Patton says, how about them Vols? A big LOL and woo. Ed is for UT, says game of the year in all of college basketball and gives the classic for Alabama there as well. Unbelievable. Ethan says that was not – oh, come on now. That was not an impressive win at all. It was very – I don't care. I don't care how impressive it was in this one. 5 versus 6, a number 1 seed on the line. I'm not looking for style points. The bottom line was Tennessee 79, Alabama 76. That's where I'm going to hit it. It wasn't Tennessee, I thought, got outplayed. I said it, but you know what? I'm taking it here. Big Orange says, let's go, baby. And sloppy made for a long game. That was a long game. That was definitely a long game tonight. I guess hockey fans got delayed tonight like we normally do for every game along the way. Let me hit JL, member of the channel, says, what a game. Rolled the Tide today. Papa J said at my age, I almost pulled a hammy jumping up. So definitely would deserve to win that one. 4 in a row. 4 in a row over Bama in basketball. It's and that was what they say. And you sent me this earlier in the week. this was the first time Oates has gotten over 75. Is that right?
Yeah, and they finished with what, 76?
76.
Yeah, so over by one. Still have yet to crack 80 against a Rick Barnes defense. So,
yeah. JL says cope. LOL. Oh, we got a Bama fan in here. Alabama really lost to the refs. I mean, talk about I got to hit. You guys are overrated. So what actually does that make Alabama then? If Tennessee's overrated, what is Alabama? I got to hit some of this ignorance here. Alabama's going to get Tennessee back in football. They're going to kick their freaking butts this year. After Southern football team's going to get revenge. By God, we're real scared. We're freaking terrified of it. So we'll just see on that. And I'm trying to get all these called up so we can go on. Bob J says, yes, said the stats are so close, it's splitting hairs. I mean, if anything, like we talked about, they favor Alabama on here. Man, I would hate to know I was a Bama fan and I come in saying this. Lost to that overrated number 5 team when we're number 6. It's oh well, whatever, man. Let's get into this. What how would you assess the point guard battle today? Sears versus Ziegler.
I mean, I would say Sears won the battle today, but I think you also have to put a caveat in there at the fact that Zakai set out pretty much half the first half. Sears ended up with 20, 24, and Zakai ended up with 15. So and Zakai's a second half player. Like, he's been the second half player, all year long, and he came up clutch there in the second half for you, banking that 3 in. So
yeah, that was wild.
I do think Sears won that overall battle today, but I also think that, again, you got to put the caveat in there, the fact that Zakai set well over maybe 10 minutes, 12 minutes in that first half. So I was just looking real quick at the shot chart from the game. At the rim, Tennessee shot, looks like 7 of 16, but in the paint, they shot 7 of 15. And something that you and I had talked about on a couple of streams that I've been on with you about the mid-range shots that Alabama does not take. Alabama took 0 mid-range shots in this game. They took 27 shots at the rim, 45%. So the majority of their shots come at the rim, but they only shot 51% at the rim, and they only shot 2 of 9 in the paint. Tennessee shot 4 of 9 from mid-range. From above the break at the 3-point line, they shot 7 of 19. So, Tennessee pretty much won the battle everywhere shooting the ball. Looks like they pretty much won the battle everywhere on the floor. Bama shot better in the corner 3 because Tennessee only shot 1. But Tennessee went, again, 7 of 16 at the rim. So Bama took 11 more rim shots and 7 more rim shots than you did. But your defense, holding them to right at 50% at the rim, I mean, that's pretty good defense to do that.
You called it, man, and that's why I always go to you for Tennessee basketball stats. You called this when you said the difference between Alabama and Kentucky is Kentucky will shoot the mid-range jumper. Alabama's either to the basket or 3-point line. You called it. That's what it was today. There were some times I thought Alabama there were times Sears got to the rim, and it's like 3 or 4 guys are there, and he still got there. But yeah, you called it, man. It was perfectly described in the fact that we didn't see the Bama mid-range game today. And, the big thing, you talked about the great equalizer of the 3-pointer. And I'm still surprised at that stat that Alabama only hit 1 more than Tennessee. I really felt like it was worse than that, but they did miss some. Tennessee left them wide open numerous times. Just a big win. big win for this team. Do you think the 1 seed's locked up, or what do you think needs to happen the rest of the way for them to get that 1 seed? Because to me, Auburn, big win at Kentucky. Bama's still got Florida and Auburn left. They've got the toughest stretch. Auburn, I can't remember who Auburn has earlier in the week next week. But I think if Auburn has a good shot to win. Duke plays nobody. I think Duke's the number one. Houston was beating Cincinnati pretty bad, close to 20 last I saw. I think Houston is a 1. What does Tennessee have to do the rest of the way to get that 1 seed?
I think I think you definitely have to win these last 2 regular season games. I think you have to. I think if you beat Ole Miss, they're going to slide you back down. I think if you lose to Ole Miss, they're going to slide you back down to the number 1, 2 seed. I think you have to win these last 2. And then, I think you probably would have to win that first game in the SEC tournament on Friday. So I think you have to win these next 3 games. Then once Saturday comes, I think the bracket's pretty much put together by that Saturday. And depending on who you play, I don't think that's really going to weigh on you being a 1 seed or not if you lose, because you're likely going to play either Bama again, Florida again, Kentucky, or Auburn on that Saturday, more than likely. So beat Ole Miss, beat South Carolina, win that first game on Friday, and then I think that is 100% stone cold lock as a 1 seed. Now, if you lose on Tuesday, you're still in that hunt, but you're going to need probably a little bit more help. You're probably going to need Florida maybe to lose another one. You may need Bama to lose another one. I don't know who he really has behind those 2 as far as like more 2 seeds, but you may have to have a little bit of help. But turn around on Tuesday, and beat Ole Miss is that's the next one in line. It's the next big one, and to get a 1 seed, you're going to have to go to Ole Miss, and you're going to have to win that game.
Yeah, I think at this point, there was a point I thought you could lose 1 down the stretch. But I think now you've got to win the last 2. I really think you do. And you win those 2 based on whoever you play Friday night, you get that one. You're probably playing Auburn or Kentucky on Saturday. If it's Kentucky, I think you got to win. If it's Auburn, I think you could lose and be all right. And really, I say you got to beat Kentucky more or less. You can't let those assholes beat you 3 times in 1 year, because I still maintain that Kentucky has big wins. I don't think they're a weird program. They play their competition a lot. They have some rough losses. They have some really good wins too. Auburn, man, I don't know. We were so close to beating Auburn at Auburn. And that just tells me this is a really good basketball team, because Auburn, besides that game, I know Florida beat them, but Auburn is – who else? Duke beat them. Other than that, Auburn looks really good. And there's not – I don't know how – I think if you're Tennessee, you probably, if you get that 1 seed, I'm thinking who you end up with. Maybe St. John's is the 2.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that, definitely.
And maybe Michigan State. I don't think you would get another SEC team as a 2. You could. You could get Florida. But, based on how both of those games went, I don't know how much stock you put into that, really. But
It still, you brought up Kentucky. It still infuriates me that they beat us twice. You look at their record, they're 19-10. We win those 2 games, they're 17-12. Their whole resume and their whole season is built on beating us twice. And it just infuriates me how you see other teams like Bama, Auburn, like Florida, the other top teams in this conference really don't have a problem with them. And for some reason, we've not been able to find a way to beat them twice. It's just, I think maybe you and I talked about this. I think maybe after we lost to them up there, that's just one of those teams this season that for whatever reason, it's just a mismatch. Last year it was Mississippi State. I can't remember who it was. I can't remember who it was the year before that, but there was a team a year before that beat us. I think two or three times. It's just for whatever reason, Kentucky this season, it's just a mismatch on their style and our style. But it's also hard to beat a team 3 times in the same season. So, part of me would want to see them in the SEC tournament. to avenge those 2 losses and get a win against them and get that monkey off your back for this season. But also a part of me is like, maybe that's just a bad mismatch this year. And you wouldn't want to pick up another loss, a third loss to them to continue to help them out, maybe hurt yourself still. So I'd probably want to play them so we could beat them, but we'll have to see how the seeding and everything falls out. Tuesday is going to be a big one, though. Ole Miss has kind of been a sneaky place to play for us. The games down there always seem to be kind of close. They kind of play the same style that we play, the slow down defensive battle top style. So I would expect it to be more of a low scoring game. But yeah, it's a quick turnaround. That's another thing about turning around and playing Tuesday night too. How many times have we had a tough game like this on a Saturday to turn around and that Tuesday it not be pretty for a half because we're trying to get our legs back to us for the quick turnaround because of how hard we had to play. So that's something I'm going to be looking at Tuesday night is, do we have our legs early in that game?
Yeah, I mean, you think about had that tough loss to Auburn, and then you come back on Tuesday against Kentucky and
lose. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't know what the excuse was for the second Kentucky game. The first one I think could have been a hangover. The second one, I don't know. I'm like you. That one still kind of baffles me that Kentucky just shot lights out both games. That's all there is to it. No, it's this. I got to hit this. Andrew the GOAT. Alabama easily should escort 100 points. Well, I'm sure Tennessee's players would take some escorts if you won't pay for them there, Andrew. Tennessee's not as talented as Alabama. Your team is pretty much mediocre. Dude, just save yourself the trouble and just go on. All right? You keep making yourself look worse with every post that you make on here. You got beat. Move along. Focus on Florida. Focus on Alabama. And then your draw. Tennessee is probably, I think, if the one seeds go as they go now, if it plays out the way it does now, you're probably looking at what? Auburn, Duke, Houston, Tennessee. And then you snake back through if they do it that way. I highly doubt Tennessee is going to get an SEC team as that other number 2. It could happen, but the committee normally won't match them up that way. That's why I say I wonder if it's St. John's. And then Florida probably matches with Houston. You got Michigan State in there if they take care of business and so forth. But I'm like you, man. We've at least, I think, you win the next 3, you're a 1. Because if you get to that weekend, then you're looking at more than likely Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, maybe Alabama's still up in the top 4, though, aren't they? So
yeah,
if you get to the weekend and that's your top 4, it is, you lose one of those. I can't see the committee hurting you on that one. But man, just gotta give credit to this team tonight when it wasn't beautiful. They took care of business on the night.
So real quick, Florida plays Texas A&M tonight, and then Wednesday they play at Alabama. They're right now. I mean, on the ESPN app. Right now, Florida is the 3 seed, third in the SEC at 11-4. You're 4th at 11-5.
Who gets the tiebreaker?
I think from our understanding, and I have to go back and look because I read something earlier in the week about this. We would hold the tiebreaker over them if they lose another one. So there's potential that we could end up. And then Bama's 12-4, and they're they're second right now, and they still got to again play Florida and play Auburn. So there's a chance that if you win these last 2, and Florida loses to Alabama, and then Auburn beats Alabama, there's a chance you're the 2 seed in the SEC tournament.
Really? I mean, that my thinking of it is, you get to Saturday, I'm okay with whatever happens.
Yeah.
As long as you get a 1. But if you get to Sunday at that point, you're already playing. You might as well win.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the way I was with baseball last year when I was okay if they got put out, but then Mississippi State started pulling their shenanigans. So I'm like, I don't want to lose this game. And then you got a rematch with Vanderbilt. And I'm like, I don't want to lose Vanderbilt again. And then you get to the championship, you're like, might as well win it. So it's like the same thing here.
Yeah, I'll never forget that Mississippi State game because up to that point, it just felt like we were just on cruise control, like whatever. And then they started chirping, and like you could see it through the screen. That switch just flipped for us, and it's like, okay, let's go ahead and start playing some baseball. And then you just obliterated everybody the rest of the way. It was the thing. It was just it's why you don't chirp. That's just like I have to go back. I think it was Sears. Was it Sears that hit that three to put him up?
Yeah.
76, 70 or whatever it was. And he's just cheesing to the TV camera and he's just all pumped up and he's running his mouth and everything. So it's why you don't talk till the game's over.
No, that when you're talking about too, at the end of the game, there was that clip, but you could tell Tony Vitello got fired up because he was out there basically slapping Nate Snead in the chest because Snead come in hitting like 101. And everybody was just fired up on that one. That was when at that point my mindset shifted to let's win this whole thing and go because people are like, oh, I don't want to be the number one overall. It's bad luck and target on the back. If you're a good team, you're going to have a target on your back. It does not matter if you're a 1 or 2 seed on it. But this one tonight, yeah. I mean, I think back to like you talked the Georgia game last year. They started chirping when they got up on Tennessee in basketball. But the only problem was they chirped a little too much and Dalton Connect got the last laugh. Because I remember at that point in time, I was just starting out my channel, hadn't had a ton of views, and that was my first biggest view because I was a little fired up because they started dancing and yapping. And I come on and I said, if you're going to dance and you're going to yap, you better make sure Dalton Connect's done with because he come in and finished them.
I remember exactly where I was at and what I was doing at the end of that game, what you're talking about. The wife and I were house hunting, and I was trying to watch the game on my phone, and we stopped to get some ice cream. And I saw the Georgia players chirping and running their mouth. And then like the next 6 minutes was basically Dalton Connect saying, okay, you're going to chirp. Everybody get out of the way. Give me the ball. And then he started chirping back at him. And I sat there for like the next 30, 45 minutes in the car, just hysterically laughing at the fact that Georgia could do absolutely nothing to stop Dalton Connect the last 6 to 7 minutes. It was beautiful.
It was
awesome. To me, I love when things like that happen is when the other team starts chirping and then your team's like, they turn it up a notch and then they make their other team look stupid for chirping as early as they do. I love when things like that happen.
Yeah, and that's something you don't get out of this basketball team. They don't if you want to bring it, they'll go. But they're not typically like that. I called out a baseball player today on my post game because I don't have any problem saying it. Ryan Combs has been a chirper so far against crap teams. Just because your brother finished the College World Series last year doesn't mean you come in with the same stuff, acting like an idiot, for lack of a better term, chirping at teams when you're up 10, 11, staring them down. I don't like that. I like it if it's the way Tennessee teams have handled it. You respond to it. But if you're just being like that, come on, man. I have no problem with trash talk. It's competitive sports. It's going to happen. But like you said, sometimes it pays off to wait till the game's over. I get people get fired up and stuff, but when it's over, then beat your chest, flare your jersey, whatever you want to do on it. But it seemed like Sears did that. He was flexing and giving mean mugging and acting all cool there. You might want to let the game play off because he was one of them I saw walking off. It was just he wasn't mean mugging too much at that point. And the funny thing, we got the Bama fan in saying, however, I still thought today, I thought Bama, the way they play against Tennessee, I thought they played well. And I'm not a Bama fan. I don't watch them a whole lot. I did not think Tennessee was that sharp today. I mean, I look at it. the main three, like we talked about, they did their thing. I mean, you had Chaz with that. Chaz was quiet though in the second half, and Dickie V pointed out Chaz was standing around some, doing really not a whole lot. It was, to me, Jordan Gainey was the difference in that game today. If I put it on who won us that game, it was Jordan Gainey, because I thought Zakai, his 4 free throw misses were huge, and he had 2 turnovers, but they were huge. They were in crucial situations where he cannot do that. But I thought Jordan Gainey put him on his back in that second half and was huge with it. I mean, those 3, and of course, Meshack ended up with 11 with that 3 as well. It's man, what has happened to Igor Milicic?
That's a good question. I don't know, man. I don't know. These last few games, he's not been consistent. He's not, and I tell you what else has happened, because I was just looking at this. I tell you what else has happened too is Igor has had a calf strain that he's been trying to manage for a while. That's why he's wearing a sleeve on his calf. And I think one of the assistant coaches mentioned that a few weeks ago. So he's had that. So he's kind of been trying to play through some little bit of discomfort in his calf. But what's happened too is your small ball lineup, by putting Meshack at the 4, has all of a sudden, with Zakai, Gainey, Lanier, Meshack, and Akpar on the court together, has all of a sudden just opened everything up for this team, opened the floor up, and it has become your most consistent, best lineup the last 5 or 6 games. And I just looked it up. That lineup that I just mentioned in the last minute of the game was +6. That lineup is the reason those were the guys that hit those shots in the last minute and a half to win you the game. So what's happening is Igor's inconsistent and he's struggling. But then on the other side is the lineup they're throwing out there with him off the floor is carrying this team right now. So, they're not going to throw him back out there if the lineup they have on the floor is got things going. But they're still going to need him to bring some value on the court and bring something, especially once the NCAA tournament comes around.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's kind of funny how you had it pegged down the best lineup for a bit, for a point in time, which, it's always subject to change, was Sakai, Chaz, Gainey, Milicic, Akpara. The stats proved it. The analytics proved it. But, I know there was all things this week about it, but you clarified it, said really the whole point was you've got to have Zakai, Chaz, and Gainey on the court. Really, those other 2 are interchangeable. I think there's points in time where you could go Meshack and Igor as the other 2. There's points in time you could go Igor and Akpara. You could go Meshack and Akpara. I agree with you, and I understood the whole time what you meant by it. The main thing is you got to have those 3 guys on the court at the same time, especially late in the game, because that's the 3 guys that carry you with it. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I think anybody would have understood that, because, did we win the Illinois game if not for Jordan Gainey? Nope.
No.
Not at all. Did we win tonight if not for Jordan Gainey? That's your main 3 guys to score. Whatever combination, I don't give a shit if you come up with Cade Phillips and Darling Stone Dubar to go with those 3. You got to have those 3 on the court.
I think what's happened too, I was having a discussion with somebody this week about this lineup whole thing. For 3 years, the coaching staff tried to play Josiah Jordan-James as a 3, as a small forward. And then when it became a 4-man, a power forward, a 4-man, it's when his game went to another level last year, because that best suited him and what needed to be on the floor. And I think they're starting to figure out kind of now, halfway through the season, that Meshack's kind of the same mold as what Josiah was. It may not be as good as an offensive player as Josiah could be, but the role that each one of them needed to play on each respective team, the role Josiah needed to play last year and the role Meshack needs to play this year, is kind of the same. Both of them need to play the 4. Both of them need to play defense. You need to play the small ball, because that allows you to get your best offensive lineup out on the floor.
Yep.
Because last year you could go with Zakai, Santi, Dalton, Josiah, and Jonas. So, right, so you got your best 3 scorers and Zakai, Santi, and DK. Then you had Josiah who could play the defense and bring you rebounding and bring you hustle plays and give you a little bit on the offensive end. And when he got hot, he got hot. And then you had Jonas. Well, now you're starting to see the same thing with this team. By playing Meshack at the 4, you're getting Zakai, Gainey, and Lanier, your best scorers on the floor together. And then you're getting Meshack to be the Josiah defender, bring you a little bit of something on offense when he can, the hustle plays. And now you got Para playing the Jonas Adu role from last year. So I think they've kind of figured out that is kind of what this team needs. But yeah, to what you were saying, like, I probably presented it in a horrible manner of what I was trying to say. And I probably should be better trying to say that. But to me, the whole point was you got to have offense to win. And you got to be able to hit shots when it matters. And your best offensive lineup and your best lineups across the board are with Zakai, Gainey, Lanier on the floor. It wasn't me, trying to undervalue Meshack. It was just I was saying those 3 have to be on the floor together. You can't bring. What I was trying to say is you can't bring Gainey in and take out Lanier because Gainey comes off the bench because then you don't get those 3-headed monsters together, right? You can't bring in Gainey and take off Zakai because then you don't get those 3-headed guards together. So pushing Meshack to the 4, I didn't know if it would work because he's kind of 6'4"-ish. So I didn't know if he could play the 4 and hold up, but he's starting to show that he can hold up playing the 4. So that's unlocked something new for this team. But the 2 best lineups you put on the floor still, I even looked at it yesterday, the 2 best lineups are still the lineup that I discussed initially is still by the metrics the best. But now the small ball lineup is starting to catch up to them and are starting to get more minutes. And that is becoming your 2 best lineups. Your starting lineup is still your worst lineup that you have by all the metrics.
Yeah.
So they're starting to figure it out. So it's a good thing that you got 2 lineups now that you can put on the floor and you can feel very comfortable about because there for the longest time you didn't have 2 lineups you could put on the floor. They really didn't start playing this small ball lineup the last 2 weeks, last 2.5 weeks. They didn't start really doing it until after you and I had the discussion about the lineup thing. It's when they kind of went to this small ball lineup and now they figured that works. So that gives me more encouragement going into the NCAA tournament. You got 2 lineups you can throw out there now that they can all flow together and play together and do the things that needed to do to get yourself a win.
It was what it was, man. I mean, you looked at the analytics, you addressed it, you talked about it. At a point in time, that was the best lineup. That's why I said it's like anybody that's a wrestling fan knows on a wrestling card it says at the bottom, cards subject to change. That's the same thing with this one. At a point in time, the best lineup was Ziegler, Lanier, Gainey, Milicic, Para. It proved it. Like you said, it wasn't to disparage. It wasn't to, throw off on Meshack by any means, but the numbers suggested at that point in time. There was a point in time Meshack was struggling. He was. Multiple people, even people, I know you and I are both follow VaultQuest. They pointed it out on there as well and said the same thing that, people ask whose minutes are going to suffer to get Gainey in. And, your Ramey and Lewis was like Meshack. It was a point in time. Now, have things changed? Yes. And it's going to happen over the course of the season. And it is what it is. Like you said, man, it wasn't anything to disparage Meshack by any means. It's just for a point in time, when Tennessee hit a rough stretch, it was what it was at that point. And could it change again going forward? Yes. I mean, we still have 3 more games at least. I mean, you've got 2 more regular season. You're guaranteed 1 more for the SEC tournament before you get to the NCAA tournament. So things could change at that point. But I can assure you, anybody listening or whatever, I know we're both totally ecstatic that Meshack got his due tonight and hit that because, I mean, he and Ziegler, fantastic Vols guys that come in, just done so much for the program.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ecstatic for Meshack. I want Meshack to be successful. He's a great ambassador of the program. He's an incredible family, incredible kid. Like last summer, me and my son spent a little bit of time with Meshack. He got to meet Meshack. We had a whole on discussion. Just was really good with my great kid. I'm just as happy as anybody else that he hit that shot today. So again, like I said, it wasn't to disparage him. I'm happy. I want him to be successful. I want everybody on the roster to be successful. It was just I was looking at the time he was struggling, and we kind of hit a rough patch right where we lost to Kentucky twice. We had lost to Auburn. We got blown out by Florida, and it's like, okay, what's not working? What is working? And that was one thing that I looked at, and that's why I ran with it, and I'm glad that he hit a shot like today to get me to. People can say, "Hey, you're wrong." I'll take
Well,
it.
you weren't wrong. It was what it was, though.
Right.
At that point in time, it's just changed. It's
Right.
Milicic is now kind of falling. Meshack's picked his game up, so you weren't wrong. It was what it was on it. I mean, They hit a couple members. What's up, Douglas Graham? Said just now joined the chat. That was a few minutes ago. So he did come in. What we figure out at this point, what we thinking? Win the last two and win at least one in the SEC tournament. I think that puts us a 1 unless Kyle Beach had said on here Auburn plays A&M, and that's a pretty rough stretch. But I think if Auburn lost their last two and then lost, say, on Friday in the SEC, could that bump them out of a 1?
I don't think so based off their resume. I think they got 14 or 15 quad 1 wins, which is like 6 more than the next best team. So I don't think at this point between them and Duke, I don't think really anything can happen the rest of the way to knock them out. I think Auburn's your number 1 overall seed. Duke is your second number 1 seed. Houston pretty much, unless they fall off a cliff here the last 2 weeks and maybe get knocked out early in the Big 12 championship, they're going to be your third number 1 seed. So really the last number 1 seed, I think, is the only one left up for grabs. Now, if you're Tennessee and let's say you win these last 2 and win the SEC tournament, you might move up to the number 3 overall seed, like behind Auburn and Duke.
Yeah.
So there's a chance that you can continue to move up if you keep winning. What this team's doing right now, somebody mentioned this to me earlier in the week. It's kind of reminded me of that Kenny Chandler team. That Kenny Chandler team struggled in January, and then it hit February, and they went on a run, and they won the SEC tournament. And this team right now is kind of starting to seem like that type of team where they struggled in January, but since the calendar flipped to February, now we're in March. They went on a run here.
Yeah. I mean, that's key to me. Win the next 3, and I think you're a 1. I think no matter what, because if you do that, you get to the weekend, I think you're losing to one of these top teams if you do. And, depending on who it is, I'm always kind of one. I don't care what they do in the SEC tournament, but at the same time, I don't want to lose to Kentucky again. I really don't want to lose to Auburn again. I don't want to lose to Florida. I don't want to lose to Alabama. So this is one of those years based on who we play. Just go win it. Just win out and see what happens with it. But, that probably leads to I really hope if they get to 1, they don't get sent to Lexington. I do not want our first 1 seed to be spent in Lexington, Kentucky. And I hope we get sent to Raleigh in that case. But we'll see how it goes along the way for sure. But trying to hit any more here. I asked about Auburn. I don't see Auburn losing the last 3. Auburn's going to be really hard to beat this year, regardless of what I think of them. They've got a good team. Pearl is a great coach. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, I have bad feelings for him just for the way he went out here. And then we had to deal with the Conzo Martin era. And then I don't really think Donnie Tyndall would have been that bad of a coach, but he was a slime ball. So it come in that way. But luckily, we lucked into Rick Barnes, and we'll see where it goes from there. I mean, Still, yeah, if Tennessee makes that improbable, I don't know it's improbable, they make the run, win it. Does Rick Barnes call it a year? We'll see. Eric Smith, man, appreciate you so much for 20, $19.99. Just throws it in the tip jar, man. I really appreciate your generosity on that. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a member, subscriber of the channel as well. Final thoughts before we wrap this thing up tonight. What do you want to see other than the obvious that we need to see them win, but what are you looking for out of this team moving forward as we work toward the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I mean, my final thoughts are I still can't believe how that game unfolded. I still can't believe how it ended. I'm still a loss for words to even wrap my head around how that even happened, right? Like, but just continue to do what you've been doing. You know, I mean, you found something down the stretch here with certain players and certain lineups, and just finding ways to win. You just got to continue to just keep putting these games together. You know, you never really want to count out anybody, but you got one really good team left on the regular season schedule, which is at Ole Miss. And then you come home for senior day, next Saturday with South Carolina, which is the worst team in the SEC. It's going to be an emotional day for everybody that day because it's been Meshack's last home game, Zakai's last home game. So that's going to be an extremely emotional day. So hopefully, the emotions don't get too out of whack so they can take care of business that day. But keep stacking these wins together. Keep doing what you're doing. You've found yourself here. You're shooting the ball much better than you were 3 weeks ago. So you continue to play like this, continue to do what you're doing, you'll have a chance to make another deep run in the NCAA tournament.
Didn't South Carolina beat Arkansas today?
Yeah, but I looked earlier and it was like they were up 30. So I just
yeah, I think it's one that Tennessee should handle. Ole Miss is the one I think definitely they've got to show up to play. They got to show up to play. I think it's definitely winnable, but if you show up or if you don't show up, they're very capable of beating along the way. I think they get that when they'll take care of business with South Carolina. But I agree with what you said, and I'm still really almost in shock that we still won that game today, as it just felt like so many times, especially during that second half, like today's not the day. And then here you go. They got it done. But thanks to Jordan for showing up tonight. We had a good post game tonight. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you hit that like, the share, the subscribe. Check out the link in the description for the channel memberships, for the Patreon, or if you just want to say thanks, there is the super thanks going on there as well. He's Jordan. This is Frank. This is House of Orange. You guys have a great rest of your evening. And you know what? It's definitely a better day at any point to wear orange than it is the maroon or that crappy Alabama stuff. Y'all have a great rest of your evening.